Welcome back to SPSV course. We're looking at Chapter 8, Delivering Customer Satisfaction. Now, this chapter essentially deals with the National Transport Authority's role in customer service, with an overarching theme really that good customer service is good business. It also goes into detail about customers' rights and responsibilities, aspects of good customer service, assisting customers with disabilities, diversity and equality, dealing with complaints, dealing with difficult customers. Now, one of the NTA's objectives is to ensure that all operators provide professional, efficient, safe, accessible and customer-friendly service to their passengers. The NTA supports users in a variety of ways, including a consumer app called Driver Check. So that enables SPSV users to confirm the details of an individual driver and vehicle prior to or even during a trip. The NTA's website that provides consumer information relating to public service vehicles and indeed other public transport services. It provides the best means for customers to report exemplary service or make a complaint. And the information line is also available to provide users with information on all aspects of the service. Customers can use this channel also to report exemplary service or indeed make a complaint. Now, customers with disabilities or specific requirements are also an important focus of the National Transport Authority's statutory objectives. It's not just a whimsical desire, it's something that's written down in law. And the authority is constantly examining ways to make public service vehicle services more accessible to all passengers, to be a most inclusive service. Now, so we're going to look at the customer's rights and responsibilities. So customers' rights. So the first heading here is fares and receipts. Now, as we've seen before, drivers may not charge more than the fare calculated on the meter, even with a prior written agreement, and they must offer customers the printed receipt for the journey, which contains specific information. And it's a written receipt, of course, for hackneys and limousines. An unreasonable refusal of service. Now, taxi drivers may not unreasonably refuse service for journeys of 30 kilometres or less. And that it's bound to occasionally mean that you must take a passenger only for a very short journey. Customer service. SP operators should be courteous, helpful and neatly dressed. They should have a good working knowledge of major routes and destinations. Follow any direction or route chosen by the passenger. They must offer reasonable assistance with luggage. The vehicle must be clean and roadworthy. Under regulations. Now, drivers must display their driver ID card and the in-vehicle information card in the clear view of the customer. Now, at a taxi rank, the passenger may choose a taxi other than the one at the head of the queue. When it comes to guide dogs or assistance dogs or mobility aids, public service vehicles must carry guide dogs and assistant dogs, mobility aids at no extra charge for passengers who need them. Now, the customer's responsibilities around fares. The customers are required to pay the full metered fare or agreed fare, including the booking fees and other allowed extras where appropriate for each hire. In the case of hackneys and limousines, they must agree the fare before the journey begins. The driver can request customers to give a deposit or at least to demonstrate that they're able to pay. When it comes to behaviour, the customer behaviour should be civil and orderly. Customers must not damage or dirty the vehicle. They must not consume food or drink in it. It's illegal to smoke in it. A sidling charge is payable by passengers who dirty or damage a taxi. Customers should comply with the request by the driver to leave or not to enter the vehicle. When it comes to safety, customers' responsibilities include not asking the driver to carry more passengers than legally allowed. customers should not ask the driver to break any road traffic legislation, most commonly speed or breaching safety belt legislation. Now, the NTA goes on to talk about aspects of good customer service. I think to most adults, a lot of this is common sense, but let's go through it anyway. Professional presentation. Now, the appearance and comfort of an SPSV and a person's own professional presentation, like in any walk of life, are very important in determining the customer's experience of a service. If there's a rule of thumb, you should aim to maintain your vehicle at all times at the standard required for the initial suitability inspection. That's a good rule of thumb. Now, the journey, the beginning, middle and end. First of all, there's some things here to think about when agreeing the hire. So in advance bookings, agree the method and time of payment, confirm the destination and route, identify any special requirements, agree if there's a type of vehicle required, agree the collection procedure, plan the route, and allow sufficient times between bookings. Again, for on-street hires, which would apply to taxis, confirm the destination and route, and of course, ask for advance payment or deposit if required. So there are things to think about at the beginning of a journey. Now, things to think about during the journey. Drive safely and smoothly, observe and anticipate. Respect passengers' wishes for silence. Use radios, air conditioning, heater and windows with consideration for passengers' comfort. Respond to any reasonable requests they make. If possible, respond to passengers' requests for local information and advice. Advise passengers of any unexpected delays or traffic problems that may affect your journey time. Do not use a mobile phone, including a hands-free mobile phone during the journey. Things to think about at the end of the journey. Reasonable assistance with luggage is a good idea. Stopping the taxi meter. Explain the fare. For example, there may be extras like toll charges or indeed discounts included. Offer a receipt. Offer a business card with your contact details to help secure business. Repeat business. Now, the role of dispatch operators. The National Transport Authority place a lot of store on the role of dispatch operators in that middle way, mediating the business between the customer and the driver. So a customer may hire a taxi at a taxi rank or hailing it on the street, but it's probably better for the customer and for an SPSV driver's business to work through a dispatch operator. This gives customers more choice and flexibility as they can arrange a service when and where it suits them. Now, hackneys and limousines must be booked in advance. They can't pick up passengers from a taxi rank or respond to someone hailing them on the street. Many hackneys and limousines are affiliated to a dispatch operator. And at this point, I would say that a lot of dispatch operators now, especially in the cities, they run very sophisticated infrastructure in terms of internet and booking systems. It's big business in the cities. And the NTA stressed this, they have a key role to play in providing a first-class service to the travelling public. As against buses and trains, it is more bespoke. Now, the customer service advantages they offer include a 24-hour, 7-day booking service, especially in the urban areas. And the standards of a service required now by the NTA. The ability to identify special requirements in advance, the ability to confirm the route taken and the precise destination, prioritising of booking for wheelchair accessible vehicles for people with disabilities as far as is reasonably practicable, and dispatch operators then can have better procedures for dealing effectively with any customer issues that may arise. Now, there's also the matter here, I just snipped it in here, the two-way radios, because these are a part of the infrastructure. They can be in some cases, and they are regulated by what are abbreviated as ComReg, which is the Commission for Communications Regulation. Okay, because it's illegal to operate a two-way radio without a license. Okay, it's important just to know that. Now, assisting customers with disabilities, understanding different types of disabilities. So, because many people with disabilities are frequent users of public service vehicles, if we are more aware of the various types of disabilities, we can be better able to give them the help they need when they need it. And the types of disabilities include physical disabilities that can affect a person's ability to move, sensory disabilities that can affect a person's ability to communicate, for example, impaired sight, hearing, or speech, learning disabilities that can affect a person's ability to learn, to comprehend, mental health problems that may affect a person's behaviour, and there are hidden disabilities that may not be readily apparent, for example, arthritis, diabetes, and epilepsy. Now, the National Disability Authority have the best recommendations, and the National Transport Authority draw on those as a recommendation to the service providers. Speak clearly, do not shout or raise your voice unless a customer asks you to do so. Determine an exact drop-off point for your customer. If you find it difficult to understand the customer, or vice versa, write down the destination and ask the customer to confirm it. Ask customers if they want help. Never presume. This might come across as patronising, according to the National Disability Authority. Give them a choice, follow their requests. Look at your customers, involve them in your actions. Explain what you are doing as you secure equipment. For example, as you attach a wheelchair restraint. Do not take aids such as walking sticks and crutches unless they ask you to. Avoid touching wheelchairs and other aids unless you need to in the course of assisting customers. Help customers to fasten seatbelts if they say they want help. Again, driving carefully. If a customer asks you to help them pay the fare, it might be an idea to ask them for permission to remove money from a purse or a wallet. Remove it in full view, explaining exactly what you're doing. Complete the transaction. Now, assisting customers who are blind or vision impaired. When you pick up a customer who is vision impaired, introduce yourself, use their name if you know it. They recommend that you don't blow the horn to let them know you've arrived. Instead, at the time of booking, you could arrange, perhaps give them 2 rings on their telephone when you arrive and then accompany them to your vehicle. Look at them and speak to them directly. Do not address your comments to a companion. Ask them how you can help. If they wish you to guide them, allow them to take your arm just above your elbow. Make sure they have a firm hold and allow them to set the pace. Warn the person about obstacles such as steps or hitting their head off the roof of the car. When you stop guiding a customer, direct them towards a firm landmark such as a bench or wall and tell them where they are. Never just leave them standing in the open. Now, to be honest, a lot of this is common sense, but the National Transport Authority, in their wisdom, like to stress these kind of things. They like to fill pages, but we'll agree with them because it's good. Now, customers with guide dogs, thankfully, will be well able to handle their dogs and may prefer to have them sitting at their feet. So it's recommended that we don't try to take a dog from a customer unless they ask you to. Guide dogs are working dogs, so it's best not to distract them. And there's our friend's guide dog for the blind with his yellow belt, and then an assistance dog with his blue harness. Okay. Now, how to assist customers who are deaf or hard of hearing. Again, it's recommended that if you wish to get the attention of someone who is deaf or hard of hearing, tap them gently on the arm or shoulder, and if possible, approach them from the front. Again, it's recommended we speak clearly and slowly. Customers may prefer to lip read and use a combination of speaking and gesturing to communicate with you. So therefore, as if we need reminding by the NTA, we are faced towards the customer when they are lip reading. If a customer speaks to you through an interpreter, you should still look at the customer as you talk, but do not be put off if the customer looks at the interpreter and not at you. Finally, if you do not understand, say so. They recommend, if you want to get a person who's hard of hearing their attention, you can switch on and off your internal lights. Point out destinations and point to the taximeter to show the fare. Assisting customers who have difficulty speaking or communicating. We give them our undivided attention and speak clearly. We're patient, we wait for them to finish and tell them if we do not understand. People may not be able to communicate verbally, but they can communicate in some other way. They may be carrying a communication aid. Look for the instructions which may accompany it and take the time to read them. Ask them how they say yes and no and how they point to objects. Ask them yes and no questions one at a time and wait for them to reply. How to assist customers with reduced mobility. Again, people with reduced mobility naturally may find it difficult to walk or stand for long periods of time. They may have difficulty using steps, bending, stretching, or carrying heavy objects. The reduced mobility may be caused by a hidden disability, a heart condition, breathing difficulties, arthritis. It's good to offer customer support by offering your arm for them to hold as they enter and leave your vehicle, but never grab them. Again, our patience is the most important factor in assisting customers with reduced mobility. Again, we will drive with consideration and take extra care. If a customer has poor hand coordination, it may take them longer to pay the fare. Because of all the aforementioned, the NTA strongly encourages vehicle licence holders and operators of wheelchair accessible vehicles to complete a recognised disability awareness training course. This is a recommendation. It's currently obligatory in some circumstances, such as obtaining a wheelchair accessible vehicle grant when such grants are available. So there are a lot of provisos, but it may become a general requirement in the future. Now, helping customers travelling in their wheelchairs, they may not need assistance, but we can ask them if they need help. It's a good idea, if talking to a customer at the beginning of an end of a journey, that we could sit, kneel or bend down at their level. When a customer with a wheelchair is entering your wheelchair vehicle, you must always use the ramp and position it correctly. Ask motorised wheelchairs if they wish to drive up the ramp themselves. Assist customers with manual wheelchairs in going up the ramp. Position the wheelchair facing either forwards or rearwards inside the vehicle and never sideways. Connect the restraints to the wheelchair and the passenger correctly and comfortably, and ask the customer to apply the wheelchair brakes. And just finally, I fitted in this slide here. When a customer is leaving your wheelchair vehicle, ensure you position the ramp correctly and the wheelchair is correctly positioned on the ramp. You know, it's not to be underestimated, the responsibility of assisting customers who travel in their wheelchairs. No question about it. Now, wheelchair accessible licence holders. So to encourage the wider provision of an accessible service for people with the disabilities and wheelchair users. The license and the license renewal fees for wheelchair taxis and hackneys are significantly lower than those for other categories. However, the NTA does require holders of wheelchair vehicle license to provide people with disabilities with the service they need. It's a condition of wheelchair accessible vehicle licenses that the details of such licenses are held on the NTA's register and made available to intending passengers who contact the SPSV information line, which is just common sense. You know, it's good for business, you know, that if you have a service that provides an efficient and a respectful service for people with disabilities, it's a win-win scenario. The NTA requires all wheelchair license holders to provide the NTA with their contact details for booking the services, whether it's of the license holder or those of the license holder's dispatch operator, details of their area of operation and the times of service provision. That they record the following details of all bookings: date and time of booking, name and contact details of the person who made the booking, the destination, and the time of arrival at the destination. And we've seen that as part of the responsibility in other chapters. Just some ancillary information here in terms of disability awareness training courses from the Wheelchair Association. The Irish Sign Language Academy offer sign language courses. The National Council for the Blind offer disability awareness training. And then there's from the department, there's an overall document towards best practice in provision of transport services for people with disabilities in Ireland. Diversity and equality. Now, this is an important area as well that the National Transport Authority insists on emphasising. So it deals with equality legislation and the SPSV operator. So naturally, as an SPSV operator, as a citizen, you have the right to equal and respectful treatment, and conversely, you have the responsibility to treat all your customers equally with respect. And again, demonstrating a professional standard of behaviour is good for business, you know. Now, the Equal Status Acts from 2000 to 2011. Applies to all providers of goods and services to promote equality and positive measures to encourage equality. And they prohibit certain kinds of discrimination across 9 grounds. So that's two important pieces of information there that will be asked in the industry knowledge part of the exam. This Equal Status Acts between 2000 and 2011 and talk about discrimination across 9 grounds: gender, marital status, family status, age, disability, sexual orientation, religion, race, membership of the traveller community. This legislation prohibits bullying, harassment, including sexual harassment and victimisation. It also requires that we do all that we can that is reasonable to accommodate the needs of a person with a disability. The aforementioned takes us through that in great detail. It involves providing special treatment or facilities in circumstances where without these it would be impossible or unduly difficult for a customer to avail of the service. It follows that if someone subjects you to discrimination or harassment based on any of the 9 grounds listed above, you have the right to ask them to leave your vehicle or to refuse to take the hire in the first instance. You can also report racist incidents to your local Gardaí. Now, the recommendation from the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, again, like the Disability Authority, these are the people with the expertise, and they funnel their information through the National Transport Authority for all public service vehicle operators. Here is here. I've snipped it out from the manual. We need to be sensitive as what we display in our vehicles. We naturally treat all passengers respectfully and professionally and hope that they respond in kind, says you. We do not make remarks or jokes. We don't ask passengers personal questions. These are common sense. They're there. I'm not going to stress them. Dealing with complaints. Now, most customers are happy with the journeys they take in taxis, hackneys and limousines. In life, most people are content with the services they receive. On rare occasions, when people are not happy with the standard of a service or a vehicle, if they feel they were overcharged or unreasonably refused service, they can make a complaint. The NTA handles complaints that relate to the condition of a vehicle, its roadworthiness, its cleanliness, the conduct, behaviour and identification of a driver, overcharging or other matters relating to fares, including the failure to issue a receipt, matters relating to the hiring and booking, identification and the general appearance of a vehicle that may include logos, stickers and adverts on the vehicle. However, when it comes to breaches of general road legislation and criminal matters, that's for An Garda Síochána. For breaches of smoking legislation, that's to do with the Office of Tobacco Control. Customers can check driver and vehicle license details using the Driver Check app. We mentioned this earlier. Customers who wish to complain can do so online at the website transportforireland.ie. If a service was booked through a dispatch operator, it's good practice that the customer should deal with the dispatch operator first. And of course, it's essential that a person complaining identifies a driver or vehicle by reference to the name, the driver license number, the vehicle license number, and or the vehicle registration number. The NTA will investigate the complaint and in almost all cases will contact the driver. And based on the evidence, the NTA will decide whether to take no further action, provide advice to the driver, issue a reprimand, a caution or a formal warning, or proceed to prosecution. Therefore, it's important that any person operating in a public service, whether it's public service, transport, whatever, you should keep a detailed record of any incident that may result in a formal complaint. You will then be able to refer to this record later if you are questioned about an incident. There can be specious and spurious complaints. They're rare, but they can happen. So it's important that if a person is suspicious that something may be said that would be unfair to someone's reputation, that they've got records that will provide the evidence or some effort towards the full truth. Now, if the NTA receives 3 or more complaints relating to a driver's knowledge of the area in which he or she is operating, the authority can make the driver pass the area knowledge test again prior to renewing the licence. Dealing with difficult customers. Unfortunately, some customers may be impatient, rude, demanding, or maybe simply indecisive. Interact in your usual friendly disposition. Stay calm and controlled. Listen. Communication is the most important. If there's an overall theme to dealing with consumer matters, it's good communication. Most matters will be resolved amicably. If all else fails, refer the matter. The customer should take the matter to the National Transport Authority. And again, it's important to say, keep a record.